Yes, I'm dressed for the most wonderful time of the year right now, the time for our best ofs. Yep, coming up next, MacBreak Weekly's Best of 2021.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 798, for Tuesday, December 28th, 2021. The year's best. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by CashFly. Give your users the seamless online experience they want. Power your site or app with CashFly's CDN and be 30% faster than the competition. Learn more at twit.cashfly.com. Hey everybody, happy holidays. It's that special time of the year when I send Rene and Andy and Alex home, and I get to take over MacBreak Weekly. Really, it's our editors and our audience who put this show together. It's our best of episode. You know, this was actually a fun year. When I listened back to all these segments, we had a lot of fun, a lot of interesting stories. And I think you're going to enjoy this best of. Thanks to Micah Sargent, the producer of the show, who put this together. And I think early in the year was also Karsten, who put this together. We're going to start off with a little bit going way back to the beginning of the year. David Pogue joins us, a New York Times columnist. He's famous for CBS Sunday Morning and his work with Scientific American. He, back in 2007, was one of the 3 or 4 top journalists who got iPhones before they were released. And you'll never believe what happened next. January 9th, so 3 days ago, was the 13th anniversary not of the ship date, but of the announcement, that famous Steve Jobs speech. Were you all there at Moscone Center when Steve announced the iPhone?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
I was there.
You got it backwards, Leo. It's the 13th anniversary of the shipping, not the announcement. The announcement was in June. And the
really? The shipping was in January. Are you sure?
Other way around.
No.
He announced it at WWDC in January, and it came out 6 months later.
No, he announced it at Macworld in January.
Yeah.
Or Macworld, rather, not WWDC. Yeah, Macworld.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
They shipped it after Dub.
I was sitting next to Scott Bourne, who was he was the guy who wanted an iPhone vest. He was so sure that we didn't know for sure there was going to be an iPhone. This is back when Apple really could lock this stuff down. So we had no idea. David, did you know? You probably had an advanced preview.
No. I did not have I will share with you a story I've never told anyone that's really embarrassing and makes me look terrible, though, about that. Apple gave 4 people the phone 2 weeks before it was available to the public. So that was Wall Street Journal, Walt Mossberg, New York Times, me, and Stephen Levy at Newsweek.
Ed Baig from USA Today got this.
Ed Baig from USA Today.
Yep.
So
I remember this because I'm bitter to this day, 13 years later. No.
I know you are.
No, so bitter, so salty.
And so it was so cool, and I wasn't allowed to show anybody, but I could play with it, I could learn it. And one of the first things I had since being issued the phone was a speaking engagement in Lake Como, Italy.
Oh.
So I took a red eye with this thing in my pocket, landed, got in a cab to the venue of the talk, slumped down in the cab seat, fell asleep.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
The phone slipped out of my pocket in the taxi. One of 4 existed in the world.
Were you able to recover it?
I got out. I got my tour of the venue. I met the organizers, and then realized it. And just about, my heart dropped out of my body. And she said in Italian, "Well, of course, you've probably got the receipt, right?" And I did.
Receipt.
Phone
There's
number
a
was
receipt?
on it.
Oh, right.
We got it back. I mean, he was really mad when he came back to the place. I emptied my wallet to him, like, please take this tip. And but he was really infuriated. He had no idea what it was. Thought it was some pager or something. So, like, I can't do a bad Italian accent.
No, an infuriated Italian, we can all see. We can all imagine that, especially an infuriated Italian cabbie. Wow. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Gizmodo didn't exist back then, so they couldn't sell it to anybody. So
yeah, this is prior to many years prior to the iPhone 4 leak to Gizmodo.
That's right. And fortunately, all the Apple PR people who would be furious at me to know this story have now moved on.
Yeah,
so
yeah, you're safe.
The story can now be told.
It can now be
Natalie's
told.
watching.
Oh my God. I believe I have the X-ray from your sleep last night. There it is. That's an AirPod. This is a guy. It's
Only one?
It's interesting because it's very close to where Andy lives in Worcester. A Worcester man swallows AirPod while sleeping and does not realize it.
That headline is just so beautifully straightforward, especially the does not realize it part.
That's not real.
I've never slept that deeply. I'm very envious. Apart from ingesting something that's both expensive and health, and like again a battery that you probably should not be swallowing.
This is from
Also found there, the house cat.
This is from 22 WWLP. You probably watched that, Andrew, in Worcester. A Worcester man lucky to be breathing today after accidentally swallowing one of his AirPods. Bradford Gauthier, good French Canadian, woke up Tuesday morning, noticed he had a little trouble swallowing. He attributed it to a dry or sore throat and carried on with his day. The day before, he had been shoveling snow for 2 hours after the nor'easter. You remember that, Andy? That was a nightmare.
He didn't want to know why Metallica
Wicked.
was coming out of his mouth.
He says he went to sleep that night all worn out. I went back in the morning and shoveled snow for an hour. When I came in, I tried to drink a glass of water again and couldn't, says Gauthier. At this point, Gauthier also noticed one of his AirPods was missing. His family began putting clues together. By that point, my wife and son had gotten the idea I may have swallowed it. They brought it up jokingly at first, but it seemed too coincidental that I would be missing it. When I knew, I went to bed with it while I felt a distinct blockage in the center of my chest. He went to the emergency room, and much to the doctor's surprise, an X-ray showed his missing AirPod lodged in his esophagus.
He didn't chew it enough.
Billion in one shot, Doc,
this is
I
a
swear.
very common problem. People do not chew their food sufficiently. As a result, they gulp, and things get lodged in your esophagus. They did an emergency endoscopy to remove it. Unknown whether the AirPod continued to work after the endoscopy.
Is that covered under Apple Care?
I don't know. Here it is. Here is the errant AirPod.
Oh, let's see. We're getting worried about nothing. It wasn't an AirPod Pro. It was one of the first generation.
Oh,
ones.
no big deal.
Those are
I've
the
lost.
Macs.
I've probably swallowed many of those. I don't know where they ended up. They're not anywhere.
The battery was probably going to die in a week anyway.
Yeah. He said, it never occurred to me that sleeping with headphones could be a safety hazard. I was really quite lucky. Long Twitter thread from a developer, Costa Eleftheriou, who apparently he's had a number of successful apps. He says the App Store has a big problem, and it happened to him. You, an honest developer working hard to improve your IAP conversions, your competitor, a $2 million a year scam running rampant.
Yep.
Over the years, I've worked incredibly hard to create what I think is the best Apple Watch keyboard app in the world. When I started, I had 2 gold. Well, I believe it became the top paid app of 2020. I failed to stay ahead of the competition, but not for reasons I anticipated. He got copied. First, they made an app that appeared to fulfill the promise of a watch keyboard, but was practically unusable. Then they started heavily advertising on Facebook and Instagram and using my own promo video of my own app with my actual name on it. And you have to pay. It's a $400 because you can't really use the app until you pay for it. The ends up being $416 a year.
Yeah, it's so gross.
A year. They keep getting 5-star reviews because Costa says they're fake. He says it's obvious they're fake because the app doesn't work once you pay for it, and yet all these people saying, "Oh, it's great! I really like it." Does fake ratings, fake reviews quickly push the scams to the top of the search results, leaving honest and hardworking developers in the dust. And he says, it's not just me. There are hundreds of these. This happens all the time. Why doesn't Apple fix this? How come Apple can't fix this?
David Barnard has been beating this drum for years as well. He did a great job over this week surfacing like articles from Gruber from like 2018 talking about the desperate need for a bunko squad on the App Store because there are so many scams, and they're even worse now than they used to be because they're taking advantage of something that shouldn't exist, which is like weekly subscriptions. There's very little need for like any app to seriously want a weekly subscription. And Apple has made tiny bits of progress. Like they've made it harder for you to be tricked into tapping the wrong thing to authorize them and little things like that. But just the amount of pure scam apps on the App Store, they seem to come in waves and surges. And I don't know what Apple is doing, but obviously it is not effective. And I don't know why this isn't like a huge glowing neon priority, because Apple's whole thing is faith in the App Store. That's the whole promise of the App Store, is that it is a safe, trusted place for you to spend money, whether that's in-app purchases or direct payments for apps. And this totally destroys all of that good faith equity that they've built. Sorry.
Is that app? No, it's really terrible. I feel so bad for Costa. Is that app still up?
But there's so many of them. Like anytime there was a popular game or something, it would get cloned and there'd be a scam version of it. And any category, there's all these scam apps that all they do is rope you into what looks like a small, first of all, I don't know why people pay subscriptions for this stuff. I will never victim blame, but this stuff is not worthy of your subscription money. And then they try to obfuscate the fact that it's a weekly subscription. And I don't know who's falling for it, but there seems like, based on their sales, a massive amount of people falling for these things, and it does become incumbent on the platform to protect us from ourselves at a certain point.
Well, a scam app should never appear on the platform.
And even if they don't have the resources to police all of them, any of the apps in any of the top lists should be routinely scrutinized, like daily scrutinized, because there's just not that many in the top lists.
So I should say that a week ago, Apple did in fact take it down. All that Twitter activity brought that to their attention, but they didn't take down their developer account. And they have another scam called GPS Speedometer, which is also $200 a month. And it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's gross.
$200,000 a month they're making on it. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It does feel like they've got enough data to track to basically have scam apps like these trigger warnings that get escalated immediately to a human review. That if you have an app that's a watch app particularly that's charging a relatively enormous amount of money per week, that gets immediately checked out by a real life human being to see exactly what's going on there. Yeah, there's any company that is trying to sell thousands upon thousands upon thousands of items in a store, they have a certain amount of cover here, saying that look, we have an automated system for submitting. We can't simply human review every single app, or else we will never be able to get developers to get their stuff on the App Store. But nonetheless, when you have enough metrics to say this person who's working at McDonald's and making $1 over minimum wage per hour seems to own a lot of boats for some reason, perhaps we should find out if they've got their hands on anything else in the corporate structure. This is the similar sort of thing, I think.
So a couple of proposals. One obvious one is to Marco Arment suggested just eliminate the weekly subscription billing option.
Yep.
Dave Barnard posted, part of this is Apple's fault because they don't give you the information, in a clear way to understand what you're paying for. He suggests redesigning the buy sheet so that it's clear that $10 a week, and you get a 3-day trial. I mean, it needs to be more clear. They do it with the privacy statements. They should do this with the subscription statements too.
Are those better?
Say again?
So are those better? Because those are also self-reported. So we're relying on these companies to be part of the information being presented.
In fact, Jeffrey Fowler, your colleague, did a really good job, I think, of tracking down how many people lie on their privacy label. Like most of them, apparently.
I was just shocked that there was I guess it's like a spot check system, and that might also be the case here. Just the pure volume of stuff in the App Store means it's done by spot check or if it's flagged. But Andy, I like the idea of anything is making a certain amount of money that should raise your little flag.
Yeah.
The other thing that occurred to me is that
just like math.
If you go to the market, you're trying to figure out how much something actually costs. There is actually, by mandate, not only here is the price of the thing, but here is the price per unit. And I think that in addition, in that little table of price information on App Store, it should basically say, here's how much this costs per year of operation. And if it costs $5.99 and you own it outright, it will say $5.99 forever. If you're charging by the month, it will say, here's that times 12. If you're charging by the week, here's that times 52. That's just, it seems as though an easy first step, and yet another indication that Apple, I don't think that Apple doesn't care. I just think that the App Store is such a big business for them that they really haven't planned on how difficult it's going to be to manage it. And so they aren't managing it very well.
Yeah.
And there's a tricky thing about how Apple manages your subscriptions, because it's all lumped together. And if you look at your credit card statement,
there's
one charge.
You don't see it.
And it takes an extra step to go see what everything is unless you have the emails turned on.
That's a good point.
So it's kind of a surprise.
Coming up in just a little bit, Apple had a number of events this year, as they did last year. The first of Apple's events from April of this year coming up in a bit. But before we get to that, I want to thank our sponsor, CashFly. CashFly is more than a sponsor. They actually bring you this episode and every episode of all of our shows. They're our content delivery network. We've been using them for more than a decade. They were a lifesaver when Twit first started, but frankly, they're still lifesavers. Now, CashFly has an amazing solution for low latency video. Deliver your video with CashFly, the best throughput and global reach, making your content infinitely scalable. With CashFly's low latency video solution, you can get to less than 1 second of latency. It's kind of remarkable. Ditch your unreliable WebRTC solution for CashFly's new WebSocket live video workflow that can scale, maybe not infinitely, but to millions of users. No one wants to wait for content to load. With CashFly's ultra-low latency video streaming, you're going to dramatically increase your sites and application speed for global audiences, not to mention podcasts. You'll reach your audience anywhere in the world with 50-plus locations all around the world. Content's closer to your customers, outperforming local CDNs by a wide margin. You'll also take a load off your own Origin servers. Reduce your Origin bills, your S3 bills, or whatever you use for Origin. You could reduce bandwidth, increase your cache hit ratio to 100%. That's CashFly's storage optimization system, SOS, another great solution for customers. And of course, with CashFly's Elite Managed packages, you'll get VIP treatment, 24/7 support and response times in less than 1 hour. In most cases, they're going to already know of any issues, and they'll be working to fix them before your team does. CashFly's amazing. So just to summarize, you get ultra-low latency video streaming, lightning-fast gaming, mobile content optimization, multiple CDNs for redundancy and failover. In fact, it's 100% SLA. CashFly's 10 times faster than traditional methods on all, almost all continents. I guess they're not on Antarctica yet, but all 6 inhabited continents. 30% faster than the other major CDNs with a 98% cache hit ratio. And by the way, congratulations to CashFly, 100% availability in the past 12 months. Best of all, 24/7, 365 days a year priority support. So they'll be there when you need them. Look, we love CashFly. We know you will too. Go to twit.cashfly.com. Bring your usage trends, your CDN bill if you have one. See if you're overpaying by 20% or more for your content delivery network. Find out what CashFly can do for you. No pressure, no sales, just information. twit.cashfly.com. Thank you, CashFly, for bringing us to all of our fabulous listeners. We appreciate everything you've done for us, CashFly. CashFly, twit.cashfly.com. So every April, Apple has the first event of the year. This year, I think there were a couple of surprises. Let's take a look. iPad Pro. Now, this is where they flexed. This was, wow. The rumor was, Alex is very excited. This is excited, Alex. The rumor was that they would use mini LED display. They kind of downplayed it. I think that industry analysts and we, enthusiasts know what a mini LED is, but nobody else does. So Apple didn't say, now with a mini LED display. They talked more about what it can do. But it became clear that it was a mini LED display. Instead of what we thought, the A14X, which would be essentially an M1, they just said, no, we're putting the M1 in this iPad Pro.
Yeah.
Interesting. That gives you some capabilities. That gives you some things you've never seen on an iPad. For instance, a Thunderbolt 3 port, which can do not only fast data transfers and charging, but video. So you can now run an external display.
6K external display.
Wow.
It runs.
And I wonder whether you can do video out, but with that kind of connection, you can do video in as well. So you can capture video.
Alex, now you've really got me excited.
Sweet mystery of life.
I mean, it works in my head. Like I don't know. They didn't say anything about
Well,
it
could be a recording device because you can go up to 2 terabytes now. So there's a lot of storage. Right. And here was the shocker. They didn't even say it. They just showed it in a slide. Up to 16 gigs of RAM.
Yeah. On the 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte models.
I mean, it's a computer. I mean, it's a touch screen computer at this point.
Essentially, your choice now is which operating system you want. Do you want iPad OS or Mac OS? Because otherwise, it's pretty much the same hardware, right? With touch. Now we know why they haven't put touch on Mac OS.
Yeah, well, no, I still think that's a dogmatic thing. But I have to say that in the middle of this presentation, I was in my banking app. I have a special account just for like Mad Money. I was moving money putting them on the plane. I was like, suit up, warming up in the bullpen. It's $2,000 of Andy's money. I had a window open just in case they created they started taking pre-orders immediately, because Apple has always tried to make the statement that, oh, well, no, this isn't just a computer, it's an iPad, trying to make the statement that don't think of this as a tablet that just is for reading books and for doing light computing. This is a computer in its own right. It does real desktop type things, but only an exciting new form factor. But this is the first time they've brought hardware that really just absolutely thundered home that point. That's everything. As it happens, just like my usual, the computer that replaced my iPad Pro as my, hey, I want something ultra slim and ultra light because I'm just going out for a few hours or just to toss my bag, has been this Google Pixelbook, and it's a few years old, and it chose next week for all the keys on the left side of the keyboard to die. So I was actually already sort of contemplating, okay, so what do I get as the new ultralight thing? And there's so many points in this presentation, particularly the high-speed Thunderbolt, so high-speed devices to be connected externally. The addition last year of the ability to use trackpads and mouses with it, and just the speed and capacity of this thing. Also, I'll say the upgrades to the camera, the LiDAR. I really want LiDAR on an Apple device, and I was actually thinking about, well, gee, if LiDAR is going to be this interesting for doing AR and 3D, maybe I should buy a new iPhone just to get it. And they added that to this thing too. It really does see the iPad Pro was never cheap, but it's about the same amount of money that I spent on my first generation iPad Pro 12.9 inch, and I really think I can justify it. More than anything else, it's gotten me excited about, yep, I will still accept some of the downsides of having an iPad and not a device that simply responds to a USB device by saying, oh, great, here's a USB device, please have access to the file system, and stuff like that. The software that they were presenting for this, and also again that wonderful, just the mission statement of, oh no, we just put an M1 in there. It will never run Mac software. Believe it. I'm sure that 80% of the engineering beside this was, let's make sure that nobody can even possibly contemplate this. But I really am excited about the future of iPad Pro with this device. I think it was just a demonstration, and I'm still kind of full of the chemicals from the Andy want shiny new thing experience, and so I'm glad I got 10 days to sort of cool off and think about it. But this is a really, really shot across the bow of every device that costs about $1,000 in Windows that tries to be hip and cool.
I think the RAM is telling, because up to now iPads have historically had scant RAM, and the excuse was, well, iPad OS doesn't need it. 4 gigs was a lot. Then I think the most recent iPad Pro had 6 gigs, maybe 8. But to jump, all of a sudden, you can get it with 16 gigs. What does that mean? What does that say?
This is. I mean, it's also the price of a computer. Loaded up, it's $2,400.
Oh,
like it is a real. Like it when you put 2 terabytes of 16 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of drive space and a Wi-Fi and cellular, you're looking at $2,400.
You could put 5G in it now too, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and with millimeter wave.
Holy cow! Finally, there was just a still of Ted Lasso on the event last week. And it said, they talked about shortbread. Ted Lasso's secret shortbread makes about 1 box, and they cut it off because it's secret, right? Except, it actually, you can kind of see it. David Smith wrote in his blog, well, that looks like a 1.5 cups, 340 grams, cold unsalted butter. And he said, oh, wait.
Did he make it?
He Googled it. And look what you find. You find a New York Times recipe that has exactly 1.5 cups, 340 grams cold unsalted butter, 3 sticks cut into 1/2-inch pieces. Now, it's for a bittersweet brownie shortbread. That's not what Ted Lasso's giving people. So you'd have to take out the...
But he's giving them American shortbread in London.
Yeah. Actually, there is a regular shortbread. It's it's like a layer cake. So one layer is just plain old shortbread. All it is butter. I want you to make it, Alex. Butter, a lot of it. 3 sticks.
you have homework,
butter, 3 cups of flour, 3/4 cup of sugar, and 1.5
sous vide it, Leo.
So you can't sous vide shortbread. What are you, nuts?
He's going to.
Shortbread.
Sous vide shortbread. It bakes in seconds. Just brown it. Isn't that cool? So apparently the Ted Lasso's shortbread recipe really is a shortbread recipe. From the New York Times.
That's awesome. It's an awesome way to get people engaged. Is to give them just enough.
They knew people would do that.
It's like when NASA put up the design on the parachute.
Wasn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Everybody, they deciphered that within hours. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Hello, Alex Lindsay from. Oh my God! May the 4th be with you, Rum Sleg. He's a bounty hunter with the Galactic Republic. Nice, very nice.
Yeah, I was. I brought it up this May 4th because I didn't know until maybe a month ago or 2 months ago that the action figure had actually come out. I was at a...
What is Rum Sleg? Is he a bounty hunter?
He's a bounty hunter, evidently. Yeah. I didn't know that when I was doing it. I didn't really know what to do.
Is he from the original Star Wars universe, or is he one of them?
No, he's Phantom Menace.
Oh, okay.
So what happened? The story behind it is that they... I was working at ILM, and occasionally, when you need extras, there's no reason to hire extras at ILM. Someone just walks in and says, you, and you. And they
especially because they're wearing a costume that you can't really
Well, that's
see,
the whole point.
Right?
Yeah. You can't see them. And so I was picked because because it looked like I would probably fit into the given suit. And so they put me in a suit. They had someone else was supposed to be with me. I look in the movie like I'm talking to somebody, and I was talking to Jonathan Rothbard.
That's you? That's you?
Yeah, that's me.
You
that's
are Rum Sleg.
I am Rum Sleg.
He's a Star Wars character, Leo.
That's and so what's funny is that that's me walking. I was forced. Of course, I was just walking.
Did you have to wear that outfit?
Yeah, I wore the outfit, the whole outfit. It was just me in front of a green screen with Jonathan Rothbard, and Jonathan Rothbard got. I think that they ended up rotoing him out because you could see his face too clearly, but I don't know for sure why they did that. But
were you wearing
a mask? Like I'm talking to myself. Yeah, I was wearing that mask. I mean, there was nothing changed.
And you were talking to somebody who got rotoed out. They
got rid of him. Yeah, exactly. So I stayed in.
Now we have to do a new Star Wars edit with that guy rotoed back in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, I was when I finished it, I walked off and they said, okay, we need you to do T poses, and I was like, T pose is what you do for 3D modeling. And I was like, why do you need a T-pose? And they were like, oh, it's for the action figure. And I was like, I'm going to have an action figure? And they were like, well, they said, we'll see.
It depends on like the third demand. Yeah.
They said, we just have to take the picture. You're in like the 3rd tier or 4th tier. It's like if the idea is if you sell enough of the first one, you go to the next tier. If you sell enough of that, you go to the next tier. And he said, but it's Star Wars. It could work. This was when the first one, we didn't know what was going to happen. Anyway, it didn't go very well. And
there's no Rum Sleg action figure, folks.
Well, no. There wasn't at the time of the movie, but on the 10th anniversary, they released a new set of action figures.
Oh, no.
There it is.
That's
there
it. That's right. That's Alex Lindsay.
So
that means you're canon, right?
Figure.
You are canon.
So
you're official.
So hopefully someone will put that in my book.
You could have a Disney
Wikipedia
Plus
page
series,
now.
Alex.
Oh my God!
So you could have.
I've known you
Disney
20
Plus
years,
series.
and I never knew this.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. It wasn't. It was something that I didn't think about that much. But so
how
I
about
don't
the
know
guy
what
who got
me.
rotoed out? Did he get an action figure?
I didn't get
Could you get put in the book of Boba Fett? You should call them right now and say you want to do a book
If
of
you
Boba
get
Fett.
an empty box Star Wars action figure, that's him. Yeah.
So I've decided that I think this is gonna be my Halloween. Like if I go out with my kids, it'll be a little scary.
Oh, yeah.
But I figured I should have a
Did
Halloween
you get to
costume.
keep the
that is-
costume? Probably not, right? They keep that.
No, it wasn't. I'll be honest. It's a movie. It wasn't really that great. It's not like a costume that would have held up. It was the one that I'll probably end up making for Halloween. Will be much better.
3D
but I
printed.
think
3D.
So I'm gonna
Alex. Alex, would you like to know that the hard plastic prototype for that action figure is now on eBay?
I know it is. I can't.
I know that because I just bought my own action figure.
Yes. There's a run on rum. That's awesome.
It was funny. I tweeted it this morning. And I went to eBay and there was like 29 people watching Rum Sleg on eBay. Obviously, I made sure to buy a couple before I posted anything. So I have my supply. There is a prototype up there. Unfortunately we've talked about it on the show. It'll probably be gone. But I wasn't willing to pay. I looked at it a month ago and I was like, I'm not going to pay $545 for a
Rum Sleg.
Yeah,
I have new sympathy for you though. Like the fact that all the conventions like are canceled for the past 2 years, that's got to really cut into your income. Not be able to do a booth sign.
Hard.
There's a guy in the corner. He's sitting at a table. He says he's Rum Sleg.
Well, I've been thinking about.
I don't know.
If I want to do a fan film, but they're building up all these, as Rene was saying, they're building up all these Marvel things. The Adventures of Rum Sleg, I think, are on their way.
The book of Rum Sleg.
Yeah, the book of Rum Sleg.
Let me ask you on that in this Phantom Menace. Are you on Tatooine? Is that where you are?
Tatooine, Mos Eisley.
Wow, at the Mos Eisley Space Base. That's pretty cool. Did you go into the cantina while you were there? Have a drink?
Green screen.
It's all green screen, baby.
I could imagine going to the cantina. We almost built one for something.
Because I think if Rum was drinking rum in the cantina, that would be pretty exciting.
Well, I think
it's funny if he asked for rum. He said rum.
What I really want is my own brand of rum.
See, yes, rum. Sleg rum.
Rum Sleg, yeah.
Rum Sleg rum.
That is totally a move that a Star Wars actor who's had one of those like one-line appearances at the booth, you'd be able to buy Rum Sleg brand because he knows a guy in the liquor industry.
But it won't be a problem because it'll be Sleg. We'll just call it Sleg. Yeah. It'll be Sleg rum.
Sleg.
And everyone will know.
That's all you need to know. Apparently, you were cheering Sebulba at the pod race.
So that wasn't me. So there's two of us actually. That wasn't. I wasn't.
That was the other
Rum
Sleg.
That was the other Rum Sleg. Yeah.
You were a humanoid
Alex's stand-in.
Wow.
I had the major one, but I had somebody else stand in. I wasn't. I didn't have time to do that one. I was on another.
Officially in the canon, folks.
It was a lovely moment for your lighting double to get that moment, and you could tell
I was like,
kids.
Did you attend? Was that you at the Bunta Classic? I saw it at the Bunta Classic Eve. Was that you?
Yeah, no. I don't know. I don't know who got to wear that suit.
CGI.
Yeah. I don't know who else wore the infamous Rum Sleg, and I apologize.
The guy bidding on the prototype right now.
It was a little sweaty when I got into it.
Who was the guy in that thin suit? That must have been terrible.
Oh, the Finn suit. That's so hard to wear. You don't want to be Finn.
I will say the Rum Sleg suit was pretty hot. It's a scuba suit. It's like one of those.
In this shot, it looks pretty ratty. I'll be honest with you.
It looked better. It looked better when you don't take it too far.
That's honestly why I thought that it might have been when I first saw that shot that you put up. I thought it might have been from like episode the original Star Wars, because it did look like what do we got in the prop house that we could just sort of put together randomly.
We'll
put a Halloween mask underneath.
It's not a scuba suit in the action
Christmas
figure
special
because it's got little wrinkles and stuff.
Yeah, the action figures looks way better than the actual. The reality was not nearly as good as the action figure. It didn't, like, I was like, really? This is how all it was a little bit of a this is really how all these suits
That's called
work?
movie magic, baby.
But
24 frames. That's how we make it.
Well, it was all that way. Like we were playing around with what I thought was a toy prop of Han Solo's blaster in the ranch. We were like, I was picking it up and we were like shooting. Yeah. Someone said, put the blaster down. That's the original. It's the original prop. You know, okay, I'll put it down.
Wow.
So
by the way, they got the day off at the ranch, May the 4th. The memo went out by an email saying, take time for yourself today to do whatever you want. So Alex still has that bounty hunter Rum Sleg on his desktop. Every once in a while, he'll show it to us. A lot of excitement, I think, rightly so, over Apple's beautiful colored iMacs. Just slim, gorgeous, and light. And as usual, on the team, Rene Ritchie was the first to get one. Here's his review of the new iMacs. I guess the first question is it, so this is the low-end iMac. In fact, we're going to talk later about rumors that there is another iMac more powerful coming. But how low-end could it be with an M1 in it? Does it feel pretty snappy?
Yeah, so I mean, the M1 is so interesting to me because I'm used to Apple. Apple did this whole silicon architecture thing. They didn't want to become their own silicon vendor with like every single device as a separate customer because that would lose every advantage of making their own silicon. So they created this scalable architecture, and now they have the M1 in the iPad Pro going all the way up to the iMac, and it performs the same in all of them, but they use it for different things. Like they were very savvy in figuring out that efficiency leads to performance. So they can use M1 to have world-class performance but huge battery life in the MacBook Air or the iPad, and they can use M1 to let them whittle down the chassis on an iMac to almost nothing and give you like a modern version of that translucent iMac take, not because the plastic is see-through, but because the thing is almost two-dimensional. So it's and it doesn't miss a step. Like it is every bit as powerful as any of the other M1 Macs. It's a really interesting, really smart product decision, I think.
Yeah, I mean, everybody focuses, as we just did, on the color. The design, is a refreshed design, but it is kind of feels like as thin as it is, it's like a giant iPad on a stand. But it's
like the MacBook Air of iMacs for the first time.
And it is
like
a small screen. I mean, it's bigger than the 21-inch, but it is not as big as a full-size iMac or an iMac Pro. And I think the rumor is that the next Pro iMacs will be even larger, like 32 inches. Does the screen feel constrained to you? 24 is not bad.
No, it's and because it's so thin, like the interesting thing about this is that you can fit it into almost any nook and any cranny, and because it's not a giant silver bubble-butted backed wedge, it's not as obtrusive as the old iMac. I put my 27-inch side by side with it, and it kind of melts away in an interesting way. And I heard a bunch of other people talking about them, like, yeah, my family would never let me put an old iMac there, but they have no problem with an orange one or a green one right in the kitchen, right in the It's all psychological, but it holds together really well.
So is that a market, guys? I mean, the market of the people who want a computer but don't want anybody to know they have a computer? I guess it is the hidden computer. Yeah. I want people to know I have a computer.
Yeah, me too. But and to Renee's point, like, for instance, like in our house, when you first walk in, we do have a little like nook that we cut into the wall purposely to be like the communication stand, right? That's where you get the mail. Grab your phone off the chargers if you're a do not disturber. I tend to have my phone next to me. Pull up the watch off the charger. Everything is in this one little place. It's the perfect place to put a smaller iMac. Doesn't have to be super powerful. It's close enough to the kitchen. I could pull up a recipe or something real quick. But it's a good, nice little place to have a small hub. And I know a lot of people have similar cadenzas and things like that, or a community computer. Say someone comes over, I can't, for work reasons, I can't let them use my laptop, but someone might need to use a computer. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out all ballerific and go buy a really high-end one, but it's a good thing for a lower-end computer. So I think the fact that it has a little bit of that beauty utility to it as well lets it lend in for a good design as a home computer.
That's really interesting. So now you're saying it's good for a second computer or a third or fourth.
Absolutely.
It's the extra computer, the one that you use for, just checking things in the kitchen.
Hub,
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Remember that old school device? Sorry, Andy. Remember that old school device? I forgot what it was. It was made by 3M. It was white. It was super kind of ugly at the time, but it was for Aubrey. That's what the
Aubrey. It was a kitchen computer. They even built it that way.
Yes. It didn't fly, but nowadays we're getting to the point where something like this could happen. So, yes.
Andy, what did you want to say?
All I was going to say is that it's interesting that Apple is even continuing the iMac line, because all-in-ones, like on the PC side of life, they aren't really a big factor. I think Apple themselves has said that iMacs are not the general. People who walk into an Apple store to buy a Mac don't come in intending to buy an iMac. They're for special users and special situations, as opposed to like a Mac Mini or a MacBook that are more general purpose computers for people. Again, this is the sort of things that people are coming in to buy. For someone who wants an all-in-one, they have to have a reason for doing it, and one of them would be, I have a household. I'm not going to buy my kids each of them a $1,000 laptop or $1,200 laptop. I'm going to buy one nice all-in-one that doesn't take up the entire living room, doesn't take the entire kitchen or whatever, and that's going to be the family computer where we have basically all of our accounts on. Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. Whereas the iMac used to be the Mac, just like the original Mac Plus, Mac 128, Mac 512, Mac SE was, here is the box that you have, that here's the box that you come in to buy, the iMac that you come in to buy as a Mac. This is now it's nice. It's the utility outfielder, gets the job done, fills out the roster, but it's certainly not the sort of stuff that's going to get most of the press at the end of the day.
It has a MagSafe connector on the back, which I thought was interesting. How does that work? Does it fall out easily, Rene, or is it pretty secure in there?
No, not at all. It fits in really, really well. It's got like here, I'll see if I can hold it out. It's probably too far away, but it's got sort of a ring on the outside and then a little nubbin in the middle, and the whole thing goes in and sticks in magnetically.
Does it snap in? It's got a nice satisfying snap. Yeah.
Well, a magnetic sort of a thock. You know, like when we're all addicted to the AirPods case, snapping it open and close. It's like thock. It's really
1,500. It's trying to say my name with a lisp.
Thock rock.
But the interesting,
it's my cousin.
The interesting thing is they're transiting Ethernet over this cable as well. If you get the higher end,
did you get that
MagSafe adapter? Yeah, and you can plug it in. And I'm guessing because the Thunderbolt, the on-package Thunderbolt ports are being taken up, that it's using USB. And I would kind of like more USB ports on the power adapter, because why not? It's off your desk. You already plug
it a hub
into it. Let me plug like a printer.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that would work with hard drives.
Idea of inside the brick.
Inside the brick. I like it. Yeah. Go ahead and go get it. Come on, Rene. We want to see it. Get it. Go bring it to us.
Can we go get it?
Yeah. He's going to run and get it.
Now we can talk about how jealous we are and how much we hate him that he got a pre-release iMac and we got bupkis.
Look at the front. Oh, Doc Rock. Is it beautiful? Do you love it?
I'm in love.
Now, of course, the only complaint I've heard about this at all is the white bezels. And you can see them there. I think you're right, Doc Rock. This is not the computer you put at your workstation for editing photos. This is more really a family computer kind of thing, right? So the white bezels wouldn't be.
Yeah. See, you know the sad part about M1? I shouldn't say the sad part, but the part about M1 that's going to be impressive people is it is so powerful that you are going to want to do those things. But when they put it out there, they weren't thinking, hey, we want to put out this workstation that comes in Fruit Loop colors, right? It was intended to be a fun, Apple, they love to add fun and excitement and things into the product. That's part of their character identity. And as Rene said, they have been recently following this design language that is very on point. Like they have been very, very specific with their design language. So I think for me personally, it's a dope computer. And although you can edit your photos and things on it, because people are going to be coming from a higher end iPhone, higher end iPads, and that I'm not going to replace my studio computer with it. But it is a fantastic get some work done when I'm at the house, let my niece use it when she comes over. Don't have to worry about her harming anything, so yeah.
I don't know if this is related to pandemic or if it's, design goes through cycles. Apple, clearly color is in. Google today at its Google I.O. announced their new design language for Android 12, Material U, and it's all about color, customizable colors, picking up the color of your wallpaper.
Can I tell you why I hate this, though?
Why?
Leo?
Why?
So I like it in general, and I like the white bezel. I thought I would hate them because I'm all in on the black bezels, but in a room, like when you put it in a house, they fade away. Like most people have lighter colored walls or colors in black. It just it sticks out so much against this.
Only Alex Lindsay has 30% gray walls.
Translucent.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. Did it feel stable? Is the stand very stable?
Done mock-ups. Yeah, no, it's totally stable. But I mean, like on the subject of the nostalgia marketing, like to me, I always think of The Watchmen, not the movie, but the original comic book where Adrian Veidt was having like this futuristic millennium marketing. And then the minute the doomsday clock started counting down, he switched to nostalgia and explained that whenever people are stressed or anxious, whenever they're worried about the future, you remind them of their past because that's comforting and warm and nurturing to them. It gives them those feelings of better days and better times, but it's in the past. It becomes hard to move forward. So like, I really want to push back against like nostalgia marketing because I think that's really cynical, and hope that they're to the like a next step forward. Reintegrate the good things about them, but don't try to make us feel like, don't pander to our anxiety. Make us hopeful for the future again.
Yeah. I also note, related or not, that Apple is confirming that they are discontinuing the space gray Magic keyboards, trackpads, and mice. The keyboards that came with the space gray iMac Pro. I'm going to keep mine. They're going to be a collector's item. Machine. Yeah. Color is in this year. It's back. I mean, it's totally cyclic. I mean, it happens in fashion every decade or so.
It is more human. Like colors are so human.
I like colors. Yeah. Sometimes we want to be more sedate, and then sometimes not, I guess.
The Brave segment.
Go ahead.
Sorry, man. Andy and I are having fun today dancing. I was going to say the Brave segment of this is when we had it back in the past, one of the things that was always weird was you'd go into the stock room. At that time, I was at CompUSA, and there'd be all of one particular color left or all of another particular color left. Everything else is sold out. But I think now, like the planning of, making sure you have the right amount of colors in the right space, it's very hard to do. So I wonder, like, what type of thought they put into, like, we know for a fact, red, blue, automatically gone no matter
SKU
what.
management.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you manage that. That part to me is brave, very brave right now for something this price range.
Famously, it's the thing Steve Jobs did when he came back to Apple, is he cut the SKUs because you can't do that many different.
But he introduced the colors. Like he gave us years of the
Bondi
Fruit
Blue,
Loops,
baby.
iMacs, and the iBooks, and then he canceled all of it and gave us a decade of bead blasted aluminum.
I really honestly think you have to keep your ear to the rail on fashion, and it changes. I've been watching, Netflix has a great series with Ewan McGregor on Halston, the designer, who brought color to women's fashions in the 70s. And it's very much that same thing. It's like, it's been, black and white Chanel suits, and all of a sudden there's color and there's form, and that's just what happens in design, and it's all cyclical. At the Google I/O, the Google I/O designer came on. What was his? Matthias came on to talk about it. Matthias Duarte. He's the guy who does material design, and he's doing the new Material U. And let me see if I can find his quote. Emotion is essential, and beauty is everything. And that's how he announced the new color palettes for the material design. So
I will forever love him from WebOS. He can do no wrong in my eyes because he made WebOS.
He's a good designer. And he comes on, he wears floral print shirts and stuff. He's famous for that. And so good. I'm glad color is back. Anything else to say before we let you go about the new iMac? Any other thoughts?
The camera is actually good. I mean,
oh my God.
The 720p is in potato cameras on the MacBooks for a while. The 1080p cameras on the iMacs were good, but they had the T2 image signal processor, which is an A10, repurposed A10 chip. And this has basically the A14. The M1 is analogous to the A14 in terms of silicon IP. So it's got the same image signal processor as an iPhone. And if you had a YouTube drama or like T channel or like a reaction channel, you could totally film it with this camera and these microphones.
Wow.
And the speakers are ridiculous. Like, I know there was a whole bunch of kvetching. I'm sure you guys will talk about it later. There was a whole bunch of kvetching about Apple not putting lossless audio into a lot of their Bluetooth devices. But they've spent so much of the last 3 years audio building it into the spatial audio thing. They're doing it from everything now. And like they've got speakers in this iMac that have no right to sound anywhere nearly as good as they do, because this thing is like a stretched out, I don't know, it's like a griddle or something. It is so thin, and it's got the same sort of the force canceling technology that the MacBook Pro has. So it's got really good bass without it shaking your table. The whole thing is really well done.
So you're making me want one, even though I know I shouldn't buy one.
Wait for the big one.
Who should not buy this? Besides
anybody,
me.
if you want to be able to throw something in your bag, you're going to want an iPad or a MacBook. It's just like if you need your computer.
Clearly, you don't throw an iMac in your bag.
Around.
Yeah, but yeah.
Well, I mean, Marquez takes it, so I'm not gonna be judgy about it.
Right.
Like if you want to take it to the coffee shop as the ultimate after lockdown flex, like you can. It's 10 pounds. But like for just moving around your house, it's fine. But I think it's really, or for people who really want to do like workstation level work, there's going to be an M series iMac Pro, within the next year that will give you way more cores and way more ports and just way more of everything, things that are really appealing to pro users. But I think if you're looking for a computer for your home, it's really hard to get good displays these days. People discount the value of a good display, and Apple has one of the best display teams in the world. Like it's hard to get a display this good that costs as much as the iMac, and you get a free Mac thrown in with this.
Right.
So if that appeals to you and you want to be able to put it anywhere in your house and have it like look like a piece of decor and not a piece of technology, like you want it for the kids, you want it just as like a home computer, you want it in your spa and like front of house at a gym, places like that, places that I think want to have a real humanistic feel and a really big high quality display. I think that's the sweet spot for this.
Price as configured, that particular one you have.
This is the I believe it's 69 is the gigabyte 1 terabyte. It's not 2 terabytes.
Say it again. You broke up. Say the whole thing again because you broke up.
Oh, sorry. It's 2 terabyte. Sorry, it's 1 terabyte, 16 gigabytes. There's not a lot of options anymore with the M series processors. You don't get to configure like the number of cores or frequencies.
Right. 2 ports in the back, right? Thunderbolt ports.
2 Thunderbolt plus 2 USB.
2 USB. Okay.
So they all look the same, so they have a little Thunderbolt icon on it, so you can tell the difference.
It's tempting. And what did you say the price was for that model? Do you know?
I believe this one is $16.99.
Okay. So it's not. I mean, nothing Apple does is cheap. It's still expensive in that, compared to other people's computers. They start at $12.99, but as configured, that's about $16.99. But still tempting, if you needed one for the, where you put this on the phone desk.
Yes.
So nobody has a phone desk anymore. But if you had a phone desk, that's where you would put this. I really like this idea, and it's really not just a Monterey feature, it's an iOS 15 feature of being able to put my iPhone, iPad, Macintosh, and my iMac all together, my laptop, and then moving the mouse from one to the other and using the same mouse and keyboard on all of them. That's, you could do that with Synergy and other third-party tools in the past, but now I'm really excited. I can also drag files. This means the iPad Pro is suddenly, was the right thing to get. That's going to be where my photo workflow starts, but now I can easily, after I'm done doing whatever I want to do on the iPad, drag it to my iMac for the finishing touches.
That was one of the nicest demos I think Apple has ever put into a keynote.
Yeah.
Because it's like there's not like load in this app and make sure you register this device with this device. Make sure you use monitors so that you tell like there's going to be a host Mac. You got to make sure that the host Mac knows exactly where the iMac is or the iPad is in relationship to its own desktop. It's like, no, you see, I put the iPad next to the thing. All I have to do is keep moving my mouse cursor to the right, and at some point it leaves the Mac screen and enters the iPad screen. And if that pointer is on the iPad screen, suddenly the trackpad belongs to the iPad and the keyboard belongs to the iPad. And as you said, if I got Procreate and I've got a project that I was drawing in that app, I can simply use the mouse, drag it from Procreate on the iPad into a timeline.
Holy cow.
And if it really is as simple as that, where no, you have to make sure. I'm sure that at some point you have to flip a switch and say yes, please use this feature. But man, there's just that's exactly how it would work in a movie, and then nerds like us would say, oh, for God's sakes, it would never work like that. There would have to be some sort of a permissions thing, and you'd have to click some buttons. So yeah, and I'm absolutely with you. This is the sort of leap of faith that I made when I bought the new iPad. And you don't need the new iPad to do it. I think it goes all the way back to I think the specs actually say any iPad Pro, and most machines made in I think the earliest Mac is the 2015 MacBook Pro, so it will work on existing hardware. But yeah, this is if you bought an iPad of any stripe with the idea that you at some point Apple's going to make this so well integrated into your desktop experience that it is going to be not a case of, oh, well, I have to upload something into iCloud then download it from iCloud, but this will actually be an extension of my digital experience. This was the payoff. It's a really, really wonderful feature, and I can't wait to get my hands on it.
I mean, just having the 12.9, they've had this with Duet, the ability to share the screen.
Yeah.
But this is, you just put it down. It looks like, they say no configuration, no setup. It just works.
Yeah, they said. I was reading someone online who says that they got some more information about it. That it's actually a very, very simple hack where
a switch or something.
The feature. Well, no, the feature assumes that if you're moving that you know where the iPad is. So if you're moving the mouse pointer off of the right hand side of the screen, that must be where the iPad is, or that must be where the next device is, and that's where it's going to go to look for it and go find it. I don't know how it works that way, but I think that the biggest win of this would be if it really is as simple as that, where if it locates each other via Bluetooth or something, it knows where each device is, and based on that, you don't because you've enabled this in prefs, you're good.
Here's the fine print. Available on the MacBook Pro 2016 and later, MacBook 2016 and later, MacBook Air 2018 and later, iMac 2017 and later, 5K iMac late 2015, iMac Pro, Mac Mini 2018 and later, Mac Pro 2019 and iPad Pro, iPad Air 3rd generation and later, iPad 6th generation and later, iPad Mini 5th generation later. Both devices, this is actually a hint as to how it's working, must be signed into iCloud with the same Apple ID using two-factor authentication. I thought that was kind of interesting. I think that's for security, but maybe also a nudge to get people to using two-factor. To use wirelessly, both devices must have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and handoff turned on and must be within 10 meters of each other. That's the range of Bluetooth. iPad and Mac must not be sharing a cellular and internet connection. You can't be hotspotting. You can use it over USB, by the way, but you must trust your Mac on the iPad. So I think this is really the next step from Sidecar. But I think it's a really interesting step. And more importantly, the drag and drop. Because really the iPad has felt like this kind of sealed box that it's hard to get files into and out of. You don't even really know where the files live. The idea that you could be in Procreate and just say, well, put that in Keynote on the Mac is really interesting. The very first iPhone that came out you could get was in June. I waited in line. So I debated whether going to San Francisco to the San Francisco Apple Store, and I thought that's going to be crazy. There's pictures of Robert Scoble and Scott Bourne and others coming out of the store doing this. This is what everybody did. That's the New York store, holding up the bag, going, "I got it, I got it."
That's Vincent from Slash Gear. That's a famous story.
Oh, really?
By Steve Jobs.
Oh, nice. Yeah. People waiting in line was absolutely how you got an iPhone for the first few years. I waited in line. This is from 9 to 5 Mac's wonderful kind of look back, retrospective. I waited in line, as it turned out, in the local. I thought, you know what, I'm going to have a better shot at getting one, because you couldn't pre-order online. You had to get in line at a store, and stores had a limited number. And this was for the first few years. I thought, I'm going to wait in line at my AT&T store. It was fun. Waiting in line for the first few years was really fun. You'd meet interesting people.
Steve Ballmer with you?
Yeah.
No, I was right. It was in Petaluma, and Ballmer was not there. I was behind the two guys who worked on Google Reader at the time, Google's RSS program, and they said they'd been up all night making it work on the iPhone, which is pretty cool.
Wow. And I bet that they were there.
Yeah.
I bet that they were there like almost like professionally saying, so we need to send some people down to buy an iPhone, and then right as soon as the charge bar gets to 22%, see if the system actually works, and then let us know.
Here's the Seattle
Can't get
store.
Yours from Eric? No, Eric won't share his.
Here's the Seattle store pulling back the curtains. iPhone world premiere tonight at 6 p.m. I forgot that, because later years we waited overnight, but it was actually smart of them to do it in the evening. What did you do, Rene? You weren't able to get it in Canada?
No, I had to wait until it was jailbroken and then have one smuggled by Jawas over the border.
Yeah, I did that for Amber MacArthur. I jailbroke one and brought it because you could do it at the time and then put it on your networks, Rogers.
And then it was a TIFF exploit. You had to do is load a TIFF picture into Safari and your phone was jailbroken. It was an amazing era.
Yeah. Here's Steve Wozniak going in the Palo Alto Apple store. Pretty
God
exciting.
God bless him. And all the different and it's legendary that, like, of course, someone at the inside the Apple store would see like Steve Wozniak of all people just like waiting in line, like in a folding chair, say, "Oh no, okay, come in," and Woz was like, "No, I want to be outside with everybody. I want to wait in line like everybody else."
Here's a wonderful photo I have not seen before from the Palo Alto store. That's Steve Jobs on the left, obviously, in the baseball cap, talking to Bill Atkinson. Next to Bill, the smiling Andy Hertzfeld, the two, of course, guys who were most responsible for the Mac, the first Mac. So that's pretty cool. Really neat to see them. In there.
It's too bad that I honestly didn't remember that this was the anniversary until, of course, I'm on Twitter and suddenly everybody's like giving their stories. Oh, here's where I was, and here's like a personal memory I have about the launch of the iPhone, and it makes companies have to grow, companies have to move forward, and as they become $2 trillion companies, they kind of lose that. They have to lose that kind of personal touch. It's just what happens. But it's kind of sad that we're kind of no one's gonna have stories 10 years from now. Where were you when you got your first M1 iPad? Or even probably the Apple Watch. But it does show you at the time when Apple was still very much on a rebuilding sort of arc. Redemptive arc, as the folklorists would say, that it really did feel like we are the freaks, we are the geeks, we are the huddled masses yearning to breathe free. We have a sense of community, and we bond together through shared experiences, such as it wasn't so much that we wanted to like be the first to have like a trendy tech gadget. It was that, well, I bet that it was the same reason why a lot of us are first in line to buy tickets for like a Star Wars movie. It's like, I want to spend the night camping out in a parking lot with people who, like me, are crazy enough to want to camp out overnight.
Yes, the crazy
to get
ones.
to see the first showing, first day. So
it's pretty cool.
Think differenters.
Here's a picture.
Yes.
This is actually kind of surprising. I didn't realize that the Apple Store was selling the iPhone 2 online. Francois Prou got this, put it up on Flickr. This is, we'll be back soon, it says on an iPhone. We're busy updating the store for you, and we'll be back. Yeah, Web Objects. We'll be back by 6 p.m. Pacific. You can see it. It says Web Objects in the URL. WOA. You can also see the vintage of this because Francois has Dig News in his bookmark bar, as well as Delicious, two things that have since come and gone and come again. Here's the original iPhone. Here's the current iPhone Pro Max. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Pro
like
Max.
a baby phone.
It's so small. This has 8 gigs of storage, which is. Oh, wait a minute. This one has 32
megapixel
gigs.
camera.
So wait a minute. Am I confused? Is this is the 3G?
Yeah, that's the original one.
This is the original.
Yes.
Exactly. The one you're lifting up is because remember it had to accommodate the antennas. It had plastic on the bottom. Also, it was a 2G phone, not 3G.
So this is the 3G. I got the wrong one out. Right. This is the original Apple iPhone, and this one only has 8 gigs of storage, but you didn't need it because there was no app store.
Yeah, exactly.
What did you need it for?
Your music.
It was an internet
and
device.
I'm going to find a 30-pin cable
and
charge this up because I'm sure it'll still work. Look how the other thing to look at. I have a case on my iPhone. Let me take it. This is actually as thick as the iPhone with a case on it.
Leo, the original iPhone could hollow out your Macs and use it as a tauntaun to keep warm in the winter.
Volume rocker. 30-pin SIM slot at the top. Here's the on-off button, and it had a headphone jack.
Well, technically, it said
headphone jack.
Exactly. It had sort of because that curved bezel was aesthetically more important than usability. They recessed it so deep that like a standard headphone jack would not. It was a standard headphone jack, but your standard headphones would not actually reach deep down to actually make contact. So you had to get this again. It was the start of the dongle wars.
Yeah,
It was.
That's right. Because you couldn't put a regular
dongle
headphone
have.
jack in here. It was so deep.
The Apple ones fit fine, but anything wider than an Apple one, you had the dongle down it.
It's so tiny. And yet we were all thrilled to get
it. It was
this.
the biggest they could make at the time. That was the biggest screen that they could fit into the device at the time.
Wow.
No.
I have a bigger screen than this on my printer now.
Yeah. Compared to an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Actually, it's kind of close to the size of the Apple Watch.
It's the original Samsung watch was pretty much that size.
Pixels, yeah.
The Apple Store employees got special merch. These are the launch shirts given to them. Friday, June 29th. The wait is almost over. And say hello to iPhone.
Yeah.
Wow, this is just... I'm so glad that 9 to 5 Mac put this together. There's the bag you got.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember that bag. If you didn't order online, I guess. It was a really nice bag. And of course, the packaging designed by Alan Dye, quite famous. Dye told students at Syracuse University every single black iPhone box had to have its corners painted so that there wouldn't be any color inconsistency. They wanted a box that was completely black. So some poor Chinese person had to paint every corner on every box to make it black.
Oh, that's what you got. That's what you got Apple interns for.
Yeah, really.
Come change the world with us. But first, here's a Sharpie. Here are a couple of master cases.
You got a lot more accessories in those days. Of course, there was more room in the box because the phone was so small.
Yeah.
You got a white plastic dock that was designed for the iPhone, large power brick earbuds, the 30-pin connector cable, a black microfiber cloth with iPhone. Oh, I wish I had that embossed on it, and a crystal clear tray that held the iPhone. This is a picture of all the things.
You could buy that. Yeah, you could buy that Bluetooth headset that they made.
Oh yeah, that was like wow.
And you can just imagine that the microfiber cloth was a specific demand from Steve Jobs, given all the stories that came out about how upset he was about how bad the iPhone looked when he took it out of his pocket, like with the original plastic screen and the casing, that nothing must blemish my precious.
Here's the iPhone stereo headset. This was controversial, the white color on the headsets. People didn't make white headsets in those days. It turned out to be a brilliant marketing move because anytime, I guess it was for the iPod that first came out. Anytime you saw somebody with white headsets, you knew, oh yeah, they're using an iPod.
Even the ads. They had some of those iconic ads with silhouettes and just the white headphones. It was
amazing. Here's
the iPod ads.
Walt Mossberg's first review. He wrote, we've been testing the iPhone for 2 weeks in multiple usage scenarios in cities across the country. Our verdict, this is in the Wall Street Journal, our verdict is despite some flaws and feature admissions, like no cut and paste, the iPhone is on balance a beautiful and breakthrough handheld computer. Its software especially sets a new bar for the smartphone industry, and its clever finger touch interface, which dispenses with a stylus and most buttons, works well, although it sometimes adds steps to common functions. A breakthrough handheld computer, he called it.
Yeah.
Pogue says, quite famously in his review, the iPhone matches most of its hype. Ed Baig, who also got a early review unit, reviewed it in USA Today. Stephen Levy for Newsweek said, in a sense, the iPhone has already made its mark. Jason Snell, writing for Macworld in 2007, the iPhone is a real deal. It's a product that has already changed the way people look at the devices they carry in their pockets and purses. After only a few days with mine, the prospect of carrying a cell phone with me wherever I go no longer fills me with begrudging acceptance, but actual excitement. Nice job, Jason. Well done.
It was so different.
The man
touched
knows how
it
to
for
turn
the
a
first
phrase.
time. It would scroll, and the inertial, the rubber banding. It was just such an object in like the classic Apple sense of object design.
Yeah.
I got a briefing right after it was introduced at the keynote, like 3 or 4 months before it was actually introduced, and I had, I think, like 45 minutes, and Jaws was there, a couple other executives were there.
Nice.
Usually like that's an opportunity to I gotta maximize every minute that I'm there. All the questions that I came up with, I can get a direct answer to, But even there, I specifically remember saying, okay, go over to the banquet over there and get a cookie and a soda, because I just want to spend 15 or 20 minutes just like playing with this. And I just remember it was just intoxicating after having things that scroll like pixel animation almost. It was just so fluid. Moving between apps was just perfect. I must have gotten one of the ones that actually had Wi-Fi working, because I was loading web pages and it was working. It's hard to communicate the first time getting hands-on with a device like this.
We're going to have more in just a little bit. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd like to give most of the team time off around the holidays and make the editors work extra hard putting together, and our producers, putting together a special best of for the year 2021. This is our MacBreak Weekly special. We continue on. We spent a lot of time throughout the year talking about Apple's spatial music. Some of us love it. Some of us are less than impressed. Here's just a summary of some of the things we said over the past 12 months about Apple's spatial music. Watch. How do we feel about spatial audio now? It's been out for a while. I've pros and cons from people, and part of it is that producers are starting to learn how to do it better.
Yeah.
Do we like it still? Are we still excited? I know you were pretty excited about it, Alex. You still are?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell the difference. I hear the difference. I don't know if I need it. I still think stereo sounds pretty good, but I guess if I had the choice, I'd choose spatial audio.
I think that what I'm hearing, and the hard part right now is that the issue is Apple's making everything sound better. So they're doing some kind of processing to all the songs that make them all sound a little bit better than what they did in old stereo. They're doing something that dimensionalizes them. I don't know what it is, but I can hear it even in songs that aren't necessarily
in some
Atmos.
Automated way.
So, but the ones that are designed, what you're hearing is hit and miss. So right now we're kind of in that, there's some, and a lot of this comes down, I think we talked about this before, the difference between, I think that music, so the folks who have done tons and tons of surround movies really understand how to do this. And the folks doing music, some of them do, but a lot of them don't seem to. So the issue is that, and this is the primary issue that I'm hearing constantly, is that they're choosing to, one set of engineers is mixing the vocals down the center channel, and one set is mixing down right and left. Right and left is a music engineer doing what they would do. Going down the center is a movie engineer doing what they do. And most of the movie engineers have done this for a lot longer.
Right.
The effect on me is that I hear this kind of echoey reverb thing between the two ears that isn't perfect, or it feels phased or something.
Yes, and I've heard that as well.
Yeah. So that's because someone mixed the vocal down the two right and left instead of down the center track. And so the center track is where you want to put the vocals, in my opinion. I mean, everybody has a different, like if you listen, a perfect example is, and I talked about this before, Rush's Tom Sawyer fills the field, the music field more than almost any other song that I've heard in Apple Music, except for Geddy Lee's. His voice is coming down right and left, and it has this weird kind of
phasey
sound to me. Yeah, phasey thing to me. And so that's that's my both, and you hear it more in a stereo. Like I have 7.2 at my Anyway, so 7.1 at my house, and the problem you get into is that I hear it a lot more in my stereo than I do in the headphones. So I think that it's, I still feel like it's the future. I think that, but I hear us wandering, like there's song, I think we're just in that growth period.
We're still learning.
A lot of engineers are doing it, and a lot of what we need to do is have a big conference between surround engineers to talk to each other, trade notes, figure out what's better, break things down. I'm gonna get one of the surround engineers that I know to probably do something in office hours, and we're gonna, where we just literally break down some songs. Let's talk about the songs.
A listener sent me a great podcast, and darn it, I can't remember what it was. I'll have to look at where they did get a guy who is doing a lot of spatial, who actually built a studio so that he could do it. He's a remix engineer and talks a lot about the issues involved. It was a very good podcast. If I can find it, I will tell you.
It's complicated. I want to say that while I'm complaining about some of the mixes, learning how to do it is a thing. You know, I'm figuring out how to do it right now myself as an exercise, and I'm taking something very simple. I'm literally taking the sound that your iPhone makes when it rings. I found the MIDI for that. Well, I didn't find the MIDI. I found the XML for that. So I have it in Logic, and I'm like playing with all the stuff, and I'm kind of moving it around. I decided I'm just going to use that one piece of music to do it, the Mbira, you know, that Mbira thing to kind of think through it. And as soon as I got into it, I'm like, this is really hard. Like, this is hard to think about. And so anyway, I have a lot of respect for the engineers that are doing it. I think that's a lot of them, some of the best ones are really subtle, and I love listening to it. The problem I'm having right now is that I'm so distracted when I listen to them. I can't play music and listen to it, because when I hear it, I go, oh, I really like what they just did there. Yeah. Oh, this is so nice.
You're seeing the font, not reading the sign.
It's not just music anymore. It's like, oh, they put that there. I don't know if I agree with that. You know, like, and you're thinking about the music in a different way because it's so much richer. I mean, you can hear, what I will say about Spatial is that the Spatial songs, more than it being more than stereo, you can, the detail on every instrument is way more, you know, you can hear more in the instruments, their actual nature than you could hear when they were all mushed together in stereo, you know. And I think that's the thing that I'm noticing is there's more detail in the music.
Great interview in the Rolling Stone with Giles Martin, who is, of course, the son of the Beatles' very famous producer. I want to say Don Martin, but he was in Mad Magazine. What's his name? Anyway, but in this case, Giles, who already was working with Spatial sound because he remixed. Remember, the Beatles' Love was a remix for the Cirque du Soleil show in a Spatial theater, and he's actually said, I'm unhappy with the Sgt. Pepper mix I did. He says, I'm going to change it. It doesn't sound quite right to me. It's out in Apple Music right now, but I'm going to replace it. It's good, but it's not right. Sgt. Pepper was the first album ever mixed in Dolby Atmos, and we did it as a theatrical presentation. And he said, because it was mixed for the theatrical mix, it isn't quite right. He's going to make it into what's called near-field Dolby Atmos as opposed to the cinema Dolby Atmos. He said you lose some bass and so forth. Abbey Road, he says, is better. He says a better functioning Atmos mix because it's much closer to the stereo mix sonically. And one of the things he did, I think is fascinating, he said, we can do this because we are, Abbey Road, we're the Beatles. He talks about John Lennon's vocal on Day in the Life. He says, with the Beatles mixes, because we have, I suppose, the money to do it and the luxury of time, what I and engineer Sam O'Kell tend to do, as opposed to using digital effects, we place the speakers back in Studio 2, which is where the Beatles recorded at Abbey Road, and we will re-record John's voice in Studio 2. So what you're hearing is the reflections of the room he's singing in, so it's more accurate. Must be nice. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Must
Just
be
think of
nice.
when they thought of doing that. Like, they were out drinking, like probably some, and maybe drinking. Anyway, so, but they're like, why don't we just put a speaker in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could just
there's probably
record
like
it.
3 or 4 months of them trying to figure out how to record that speaker perfectly, and
it's actually a really good article if you're interested in spatial audio and the challenges. I mean, nobody knows better probably than Giles Martin. Nobody's had more experience with it.
That's such an interesting...
George, by the way, was his father. Thank you.
Right, exactly. But that's such an interesting philosophical question because this is maybe an ideal situation for the remix because Paul McCartney is still alive. There is at least the DNA of what the original producer intended or thinks is right or wrong, because the original remixes were done with George had input as they were doing it. But what happens when it's like 20 or 30 years from now and someone else, they're not even trying to make they're not even trying to change it into something that it isn't, but they just said, with this new technology we can really bring that bass line up and out and make it more noticeable. Like, maybe they decided not to make the bass very noticeable. There's also part of this conversation would be that there's a really nice documentary series on Hulu. I think it's Paul McCartney 321, where he and a producer, I can't remember his name, but he's legendary, are at the mixing board with like the mixing tapes for so much of his hits from the Beatles on forward, and so much of it is talking about the construction of these songs, like them bringing up the bass line and noticing that Paul on this one song was almost doing like an entirely different melody, which is not something that you notice at all in this Beatles song. But maybe you're not. Maybe if you noticed that he was playing like a complementary melody instead of just an accompaniment, it would be a totally different song. So as these technologies come forward, as we have the ability to add like 3D to 2D television and do it through artificial intelligence and machine learning, as opposed to reprocessing it with thoughtful human intervention by the director, are we creating things that never existed and that the original creators never intended, all in the interest of creating topsy-turvy tinsel and gloss that this thing never actually needed in the first place, just to make it more commercial?
That's the thing about Beatles stuff. You do that at your own peril, because Beatles fans are very clear and very outspoken. He says, we don't fix errors. He says sometimes when you do these remixes, you can hear, because you're listening to the vocal track alone, you can hear the vocalist be pitchy or something. He said, but that's what made the record good in the first place. He says, this is real. I highly recommend this article. He says, we start off with the stereo. I feel immersive audio should be an expansion of the stereo field in a way. I like the idea of a vinyl record melting and you're falling into it. That's the analogy I like to use. The other thing he says is, he says, be careful about using the surround. He says, we are by nature forward-facing individuals who don't like too many things creeping up behind us. And sometimes I will with Dolby mixes and movies. I remember the first time I had a surround sound system, watched a ball game, and the beer guy was coming from behind me. It freaked me out.
Yep.
He says, if you have a lot of sound coming from behind you, you want to turn your head. I get criticized sometimes for not being expansive enough with these mixes, but it's what I believe. I like the idea of falling into the record as opposed to being circled around.
I think we're in that place, though. I mean, when Logic and when people get better at using Resolve and Fairlight in Resolve, and as well as Logic really becomes, when it supports it natively, which is supposed to be this fall, when those things happen, I think you're going to see the same thing that happened with Spatial, as you saw with Photoshop, is that there's a lot of things that people thought were useful in advertising and layout and everything else. And then, it was all very stodgy, and this is the way it was because you had all these Cytex operators that went to school and learned all these things, and you had design people who went to school and they went to CalArts, and there was a way to do it and everything else. And then all these Photoshop users, those were me. That was me. We got it in 1991, 1992, and we went crazy, and we made tons and tons of mistakes.
Right.
Like I once printed an ad in New Mexico that was fully black because I didn't understand. It was just a black square, and they send you proof. When they do a print ad, they sent me proof back, and I just hid it because I was like, I don't think anyone wants to see this. We just spent $2,000 on a black square, and so a lot of us got to play, and you had Ray Gun, which was completely unreadable. And you had all these things that exploded out of it. And then what we've settled into over time was something that is much more interesting and much more aggressive. If you look at what our print looked like in the late 80s and then looked at what it looked like in the late 90s, it had just moved a century, and so I think that what we're going to see with spatial audio is we're going to see this explosion as the tools get easier. This explosion, every artist is going to design for it because it's going to be, you have a better chance of being featured on Apple Music. And so they're going to design for it. They're going to think about it. And some of it's going to be horrible and some of it's going to be amazing.
It's not necessarily the images are better, but I have more control over the image. I can modify the aperture. Right. It's just more control. On any smartphone, even if you're shooting in the manual mode, you just don't have as much control as you do with a real camera.
But again, what I adore about the way that all engineers who design smartphone cameras approach this is all about push one button and get the best image possible. This was even occurring to me when they were demonstrating the cinematic mode, where a lot of, I did have to tweet something snarky about this could become like the star wipe of amateur like iPhone videos. Oh God, they're doing more focus pulls like every time something happens. But in terms of, I just want to shoot a picture. I just want to shoot great video of my kid's birthday party or my kid's whatever. And the fact that it knows that, hey, there's something of, it suspects there's something of interest in the foreground, so I will keep the foreground sharp and blur the background. But as soon as somebody leaves the frame or turns around, hey, I'm going to make sure that the background or whatever they're looking at is now in sharp focus. That's something that they obviously highlighted how impressed professional cinematographers are for this, but it could be the sort of thing where, again, just the person who I just want to tap one button to start, one button to stop, and get the best video possible. I'm not even going to edit it. I'm just going to be putting this straight into my social media or straight into an iMessage or FaceTime to somebody.
And I'm curious as to whether that's a live feed that can go out of the camera. So use something like Filmic Pro, like that's your new webcam. Like I just stick it up there.
Think of that
and watch it. So I think that it's a really interesting.
So
feature.
Alex, let's talk about this cinematic mode, this pull focus mode. Here's Apple's demonstration of it on their webpage. One problem, of course, is that the camera is deciding what to focus on. Now, there is a manual touch mode you can use. In fact, there's a tracking mode, which is kind of cool. You can touch somebody and say, track this face. Right. But I have to say, I don't know. Waits to be seen how that's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for someone an average person throwing together a movie for film school or for high school
it's going to pull focus,
whatever,
and you don't even know it.
It could work really well, and you just be like, wow, this looks great. I think that there's also probably going to be APIs that we can use that, people can have more control. Like what's happening here is we're giving the developers a whole bunch of new tools that they're going to be able to go in there and say, okay, well, and again,
but that comes
a company
back to
like Filmic Pro will take that and run with it.
That comes back to my point with control. Like I go to a pro camera because then I choose.
Yes.
But an amateur may be racking focus and not even knowing it, right? It's just, wow, how'd you get a rack focus in there? What's that?
Right.
And so that's kind of cool. They said something else, and I want to ask Alex about this one. The only smartphone that lets you edit the depth effect after you shoot.
Yeah, so when I saw it, I was like, I wonder if they're going to give us that information. And then I saw it, I was like, oh, I have to buy this phone. So it was like it was done. So what they're doing is they're saving all that depth information in video format as well, so that you have all that data, so that you can go back later. And I haven't seen any. I mean, I have seen other technologies that do that, but never in a phone.
Is the phone recording multiple depth? Kind of like the old ray tracing or what?
It's creating so it can calculate out the depth of everything in front.
But is it blurring? So it's software blur then, not?
Yeah, it's a software blur, but it's pretty good. And the place that you're seeing it have trouble, even if you look at the demos that they have there, are the blonde hair, the white hair, the areas where there's not as much contrast. You'll see little blurry wisps that are still going on. So that's still happening just a little bit.
That's hard to do.
What we've seen that, and that's really, really hard. I mean, that is and so that's why, in many cases, you would not use this in a professional environment because it's not giving you that true depth of field. That said, in the right environments, shot well, without, for the right things, it could work really well, and it could be really, really fun to shoot a lot of things. And again, it makes it so much more fun just to go out and take pictures, little movies with your kids. And again, TikToks and YouTubes and all kinds of other stuff that'll be a lot of fun.
Andy and I were talking about it. I decided, I think you agree, Andy, it's a content consumption device. It's too small really to do much typing on.
I think that it really is. I hate to be so banal, but it really is the definition of larger than a phone, smaller than an iPad, or smaller than a tablet, and that's for tasks too. Where, like you were saying, sometimes you spend so much time on Reddit. You spend so much time. I spend so much time keeping up with news, reading.
It's perfect for that.
Papers, news,
reading books, news, any websites, and perfect for that. I was last night. I was reading a website. Lisa leaned over and said, "What is that? Is it your Kindle?" I said, "No, it's the Mini." She said, "That's perfect." I said, "Yes."
Yep. And it is nice to have something where when I'm out of the office for like 3 or 4 hours, oftentimes I will just stick something with a large screen in my pocket, because sometimes more so when I was writing for the paper than now, but it's like something happened right now, and it'll be 4 hours before I can be back in my office. I definitely need to write 800 words right here, right now on this park bench.
I guess I could.
And
I wouldn't want to, but I could.
Right.
It fits right in my European carry-all very nicely.
Right, exactly.
It fits in my jacket
back pocket of my non-hipster, skinny jeans.
And notice, by the way, I keep the pencil on it. And actually, I was inspired by Malik, who wrote a little piece about how much he likes his Mini. And he pointed out that while you wouldn't want to do a lot of data entry on it because the keyboard's so small, the new Scribble feature in iPad OS is just right. And the pencil is just right for a lot of the gestury kind of things that you want to do. I think it's an instant notes and stuff like that, because Scribble is very accurate. You can write in, accurate enough I can write in Google searches into my browser and things like that. So I kind of feel like the pen, it fits very naturally with
You can put one of these in your bag, Leo. Just like the purple version.
Yeah, see, I have that. Remember Andy recommended that folding thing that you put the keyboard in?
Yeah.
I have that. I don't want to.
You can color match it now.
That's bigger than the iPad. The whole point of this is compact.
I think the pen is the really an important piece of it because, for instance, I build a lot of. I probably build 1 or 2 slide decks a week, and I have a very specific pattern of how I do it. Is I lay it out. I put it out. I outline.
You sound like Liam
notes.
Neeson. I have a very specific pattment of skills.
I have a specific set of skills, that I've acquired over many years. Yes. But my pattern is that I go into notes and I write out, I outline what I want to do, what the slides are going to say, and I just find it easier to think about it in single words or lines. Then I go to my iPad and I draw everything. I draw every slide. I just look at notes and I just draw every slide. And that a little. It doesn't. I don't care how big the screen is. These are like chicken scratches of I'm going to have this here, and then I'm going to have a little thing that goes over here. And the reason I do that is because if you start building your slide deck, it's really easy for you to get caught up in like what picture and should these have rounded corners and what text am I going to use, and you don't want to think about that when you're trying to think about the whole story flow of your deck.
I have a phrase for that. And the computer editing lends itself to dicking around.
I didn't want to say that, but yeah, that's the key.
And that's dicking around is the enemy of productivity.
Yeah. So what you do is you get first you get the outline done, then you get the visual story done, and then you fill it all in with graphics, and then you tweak it all, and then you're done. And now the filling in with graphics and the tweaking, I do all in on the desktop because it's too hard to do that in fine detail and on the iPad. But then I oftentimes present from my iPad. So I either present it via AirPlay or I hook it up to an HDMI output. And I mean, like 99% of the time I'm displaying. And so the Mini, I hadn't bought it yet, but I decided last night when I was using my larger iPad, and I was like, I really want a smaller one. I decided last night I'm going to order one.
The one I don't have is the 11, which might be perfect. I don't know. The 12.9 is so big. It's a computer. It's a laptop.
That's the one I have.
You know what happened?
And that's all I bought for a while.
Yeah.
On Saturday, a certain person named Georgia Dow stole my 11-inch iPad for the exact same reason. She'd been using a MacBook Air. She hated the 12.9-inch. She goes, "What's this?" It was just on the table. It was minding its own business. I said, "Well, it's the 11-inch." What?
Bye-bye.
She picked it up and then she left with
now.
Yes.
The Mini the touch targets on it are really, really small. In fact, I don't know, you probably can't even see this, but my dock, which by the way seems to be able to expand infinitely. I don't know. At some point, I guess I'll run out. But my dock, when it's in portrait mode, it's not terrible when it's in landscape mode. But when it's in portrait mode, those touch targets are so small. What's the story?
There's a really funny story about that. So Steve Jobs did not want an iPad Mini. He thought it was dumb. He rallied against small tablets on conference calls.
He's the guy who said you have to sharpen your fingers.
Yeah. And then Eddie Q got the Galaxy Tab, and he's like, "This is great. We've got to make this." And Tim's like, "No, forget." Sorry, and Steve's like, "No, forget it." He's like, "No, we really got to make this." He's like, "All right, fine. Like the same as iTunes on Windows. It's your fault if it fails." So they made it, and then the team was like, "Look, we just did an iPhone. We just did an App Store. We just did an iPad. We do not have time to make another complete interface for something." And someone said, "Well, why don't we just shrink it down?" What? Well, if we shrink it down, it'll be the exact same size as the iPhone. We'll take the iPad interface, it'll shrink down to the iPhone tap target size, and we'll just ship it. So they didn't bother to make a whole new interface. They just used the iPad interface at iPhone density.
That's interesting.
That was in itself brilliant because that meant that you don't have to spin up developers on here. Right. It is. We need you to create new interfaces. It's just also that was a selling point for me when I bought mine. I think I bought the first generation. It was like, no, this will run all the apps that you would enjoy on the iPad at the original scale, at the original size, with no adaptations. And so that was like, great, take it, done.
And yet iPhone apps aren't horrible on this. I mean, there's clearly still iPhone apps.
Like Instagram, because there's no iPad app.
It just drives me nuts.
Can you make actual cell phone calls with it? If you have the cellular service, or is it always just
the cellular service is a data-only service. But so, by the way, here's the Instagram app, which it fills the screen nicely, but you can tell it's an iPhone app, right? It just doesn't quite have
it breaks with every new iPhone because they hard code it to every specific iPhone, stupid. And now I think they're just terrified of trying to recoding it to make an iPad app.
And yet, this is consumable. I mean, it almost fills the screen. It almost feels like it's an iPad app on the Mini.
Only Apple had something called size classes they could use to make it automatically fit any device.
So I forgot what were you saying, Alex? I forgot. I was
just asking if you can make cell phone calls because
that's right. This is a big question for me because I wanted to make this my phone.
Right. Because I never pick up my phone. I never do this. I mean, I never put my phone up against my head ever.
So your SIM has a phone number. That's how all the carriers work. But it doesn't work as a phone through the SIM. However, there are plenty of services that will do data-based phone calls.
Well, I do. I use Apple.
I said FaceTime all the time.
FaceTime audio all the time. Like literally, that is my primary way of calling anybody with a blue thing, and everybody else I schedule time to meet on Zoom.
So I'm playing with ways.
I schedule it
because the one thing missing is a way to call a phone number, a landline from your Mini, and Google Voice will do that. Skype will do that.
Yeah.
There are plenty of programs that'll do that. So I'm really tempted.
I guess my whole thing is that I can do something where I can make 90% of the calls, 95% of the calls that I would normally make, and then I still have a phone for the things that need to.
If you pay a little bit of money, you get a regular phone number with Skype, which I have.
Right.
And then this becomes the phone number of my Mini. So yes, I think the answer is, and increasingly so, because LTE is, voice over LTE now, and everything's moving to data. I think increasingly this could be a phone.
I found that with, I don't know what's happened with cell towers, whether it's the 5G or I don't know what it is, but it's gotten a lot worse recently. And I actually find...
Are you Verizon?
I'm both Verizon and AT&T, and both are worse.
Lisa's complaining about that too. She threw out, I use T-Mobile. She said, no, I'm not going to use it. Verizon's so much better. And now she's bitching because it's not so good anymore.
So at my house, which used to work just fine, my cell phone calls are falling apart all the time. And so I just decided that's what moved me to the Apple FaceTime audio was that I suddenly had nice clear calls. And then I got so used to the quality of the FaceTime audio that I don't want to go back to the cell phone anytime. And so now I'm just driving and I just call with FaceTime audio unless I have to go to a cell number, and so, which I don't have to do very often. So I don't talk to people on the phone that much.
I guess the big question, and I haven't tried this, is if I use Skype and my Skype phone number, will this ring? And won't I have to have Skype open?
No, I don't think so. I think if you have the...
It has to be backgrounded, but you can't kill it. If you force quit it, you'll have to restart it, but I think it'll go on.
Well, let's say if I didn't force quit it. So it would work then, huh? I should try this.
I have things calling all the time.
Really?
Signal.
It's bugging you all. Signal does it, right?
Yeah.
Does WhatsApp allows phone calls?
FaceTime Messenger.
The question is from a landline, because we know you can use FaceTime to anybody with an iPhone, and I know you don't have any friends who don't have iPhones, but if you
I have friends that don't have iPhones. I just don't talk to them on the phone that often.
I'm not going to call you.
It just doesn't happen that often. I don't do it on purpose. I just
all right. Let me try. I don't know. No, and I guess the do not disturb rules and everything are going to still apply. Let me just try calling this. So, I guess we're back at 10 digits here. I'm not going to give out this number because. This is not one So what if I close this and see if it'll ring? I'm calling it now from my phone. I don't think it's ringing. Maybe it takes a while to signal through.
Apple should just put a phone app on it. That's what they should do.
No, they don't. You know why they don't? They don't want you to buy this instead of an iPhone. It's half the price of an iPhone.
Remember all those photos of people with giant Android tablets with phone apps, and they put it next to their head as a joke? But they're that's fantastic.
This doesn't look very different than the Surface Duo next to my head.
But it's a
by the way,
unfoldable.
No one talks on the phone like this anymore. Have you noticed that? We were talking about this on Twig. Everybody talks like this.
Well, I have AirPods.
You have AirPods?
Or I have headphones or something. I don't.
You need wireless headphones.
They're all in public, and they're on speaker, and they're very loud, and it's very weird.
Yes. I was about to say. They wait till they get to the quiet car of the Amtrak train before they decide, hey,
hello?
I should be hearing this argument with my boyfriend.
Mama
mia.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that the pass through of phone calls to the device is the need for it is understated, because I think all of us will say that getting an actual phone call is the least pleasant thing that we could ever do on our.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
We live our lives to make, but nonetheless, sometimes it really is the best solution to a problem, such as I don't have to tell people what app do you have or what's your account name on this. It's like, no, here's a 10-digit number that seems to work. As a matter of fact, every time. Because it turned out to get a really good connection between my studio and WGDBH studios in Boston. The simplest and easiest solution was to simply have me set up a Skype phone number, and they will call me from their switchboard, but it will still be like all Wi-Fi. So it's not going to be as good as directly internet connection, but at least it's better. And it was reliable. It works every single week. And there comes a point where it's like, which would you rather have? A reliable connection that will always work, and when you call me 2 minutes before I'm supposed to be taking up 20 to 25 minutes of scroll time, or would you have something that's better quality, but maybe it'll work, maybe it won't?
Well, and I think that the other thing, though, is that because we get so much junk calls, all these, that I think that a lot of people like me, if I don't know what the number is, I never pick it up. Ever.
Oh, no, never.
I just never.
Can I point that out? Can I say that's one thing where I really wish Apple would put more work into, because that's one area in which like a Pixel phone really shines. Because I don't answer the phone. Because my phone, I'll hear it ring. It will click to voicemail, and instantly I'm seeing a live transcript of what whoever this is saying. And if it's all gibberish, I know that it's somebody speaking in Mandarin trying to sell me a phone card. But if it's like, "Hi Andy, this is your cousin Phil," and burst pipe. Okay, hi Phil, what's going on? Hi.
Right.
And there's so many things you can do with the phone connection that would solve these problems. And I think Apple is now well set up to make this as good a phone as it is at doing anything else, instead of it being stuck into wherever they left it in 2011.
There is continuity call relay that'll let you answer regular phone calls on your iPad that route through your iPhone. But I'm trying it now, and it doesn't seem reliable the other way.
Yeah. Again, if it's something where a hospital is going to call me, they're not going to text me, they're not going to IM me on this message. They're going to try to call me to let me know about what's going on in a situation with a family member, and that's where you absolutely want a phone call to go through for you, not to mistake it for a spam call, and for everything to work with it. You were raised to believe that a phone system should work without the billing problems.
Well, we have to solve that by fixing the hospitals, not the phones, right? Well, they really could text message us. Since you've got one in hand, Rene, talk about it's the weight, the size, the appearance. Gruber said it feels kind of retro, like a titanium.
It is so retro.
Yeah.
It's like a power book. It's like a love letter to power books. It's got that whole vibe about it. And it's even got like this little artistic statement on the back.
They etch it in instead of. Yeah. They also took the labeling off on the screen, which is great. So it's just etched into the bottom now that says MacBook Pro.
They took away and they gave you a notch, which like it's kind of like in your face, but you stop noticing it after a few minutes too. But the screen is, if you've seen the iPad Pro screen, the screen is ridiculously good too. It's like full HDR, really bright, really vibrant.
I keep forgetting to be irate about the notch. I'm sorry. I think what happens is just forget about the notch after a while and live with it.
The menu bar leaves your screen and goes into the notch, and you have like a normal sized MacBook screen without having the menu bar.
Honestly,
on it, which is really nice.
The stuff I work with full screen, like eMacs, probably I'll see the notch because it's kind of there. I'm using it full screen, but I would gladly trade the notch for full size function keys and an escape key that I can actually.
Well, also when you go full screen, you don't see the notch because it blacks out the top. The top is out of the 16:9 window for full screen.
Some programs put stuff kind of in the middle there, like that.
Maybe
yeah. It's all right. Yeah, I'll survive.
We'll get over it.
I'll get over it.
I just wish you could pin notes under the notch. Like, just let us pin our little notes under the notch. Then it'd be like a bulletin board. It'd be great.
Do you notice that it's a little heavier? What is it? A half a pound heavier?
Yeah, it's like going back from Baby Yoda to full-size Yoda, like we used to have in 2015 and previously. But like at the 16-inch also, it's like 4 point something pounds, which is not insignificant. But I think like that's where you should differentiate. Apple's, one of the biggest issues with the previous Pros is that Apple tried to make them like MacBook Pro Airs, which a lot of new generation, I'm flying everywhere, I'm a founder, I'm a coder, I want to use this thing on a Boeing 747. They love that. They bought that in droves. But the people who were traditional pros are like, no. That's a MacBook Air. I need an actual MacBook Pro. And that's what Apple's doing back here. They're not making the MacBook Pro have to be in Air anymore.
Yeah. How's the sound? How's the music?
It's like the 16-inch MacBook Pro Intel model from 2019 was ridiculously good for a laptop. Like I think industry leading still to this day. And this is just a little bit better. Like they've just made every component a little bit better in it. So it's like a little bit wider, a little bit more vibrant, a little bit better bass, a little brighter. I was watching just like as a demo when Georgia came in. Is that a laptop? She thought I was watching it on the TV surround system because it really is loud and it really sounds. I was watching the Eternals trailer because I'm into that sort of thing, and it sounds like you'd be fooled if you didn't know that it was a laptop.
Dwindle has, as we've been talking, received his 16-inch and is opening it and booting it. And I'm watching him in our chat room slowly go through the steps. He says, "Oh, I can't wait to try the speakers." He's waiting for Mac OS update to finish. You have an OS update immediately, huh? You already have. It comes with Monterey, but.
And I think Final Cut updated some of the components as well.
Maybe Xcode too.
When it started.
Yeah. What else? I'll ask our
There was
Discord
some controversy with the
anything?
HDMI and the SD card because the HDMI is HDMI 2.0, not 2.1, and the SD card is UHS 2, not 3. And when you look at the schematics, though,
2 is pretty fast, right?
Yeah, except some people are like, this is a Mac. It's got to have the best of everything. But when you look at the schematic, it's got 3 Thunderbolt buses now, 3 USB buses, up from 2 previously. And there's just no bandwidth left. Like they'd have to add another bus to get bandwidth to make. And the benefits are uncertain because HDMI 2.1 is great, but it's like 8K, 120 hertz, variable rate HDR, great. And you're not outputting that. Like Apple, like the Mac can't output that right now. So it's a bit of a balancing act.
I think Rene is still pretty happy with his M1 Max. I'll speak for myself. I know I am. My M1 Pro, still my go-to laptop. Just an amazing device. And as fun as this year was with Apple, I am very excited about the year to come. I think next year's best of is going to be the best ever. Meanwhile, keep tuning in MacBreak Weekly. Every Tuesday, we stream our production live at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC if you want to watch live at live.twit.tv. And, of course, all the Mac breaks from this year and all the years past are available for download at our website, twit.tv/MBW. Of course, if you subscribe, you're going to get it automatically. A special thanks. This was the year we launched Club Twit, and I think we're almost 4,000 members. A very, very special thanks to all of our Club Twit members. You really make it possible to get through this tough time during COVID. Times have not become much easier. So your membership is much appreciated, and we really we thank you, Club Twit members, for being with us. We will be back with MacBreak Weekly. When's our next episode, Mike? I think it's January 5th will be our next MacBreak Weekly, I believe, or the 2nd, 4th. The 3rd, no, the 5th. No, it's January 4th, as my calendar says. We will all be back live in studio. I hope you are having a wonderful holiday season. We wish you all the best. We thank you so much for being with us through these tough couple of years, and we look forward to I hope, much better 2022. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you next time. Now, get back to celebrating because break time is over.